Right, welcome back to today's video. We were supposed to begin with the fourth task, right? Okay, it says write a function that reverses the content of an array of integers. Okay, the function should reverse the content of an array of integers. So this is the function prototype, and then it says where n is the number of element of the array, right? N is the number of element inside that array. Let's see the example here. So as you can see, this is what an array of name what A. The name of the array is A. So these are the elements of the array, right? So when the function is called, let me see where the function was called. Okay, you can see print array here. As you can see, we got what? We got this in reverse, right? This is what? The 0, 1, 2 up to what? Up to 137, 1337. So in this case, it begins from where? From the last element of the array. So that's just what we are expected to do here, right? Let me open the file. After opening the file, I'm going to show you the concept first before we begin writing the code. You have to understand the concept, how this thing is supposed to work before we be able to begin writing the code. Alright, so let me include my header file first, main.h. Then the function is what? This is a function, right? Copy this, then paste here. Okay, so now let's understand the logic first. Let's understand the logic. These are the what? The numbers, right? Let me open this here. So let's say I have an array. In their own case, just like this, they have something like this, right? It's equals to, let me just say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what I'm expected to do here is to what? Is to get the array to print the content in reverse. It will print from where? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Okay, so this is just what we are expected to do here. But how do you think we can do this, right? How do you think we can do this? Let me clean this part and show you how this thing is going to work. Okay, so now the first thing you need to know is that how many numbers are here. The number of elements in the array, we have what? We have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So what we need to do here in this case is just like swapping. We are swapping. We want the element of the first we want the first element to be the last element, right? And we want the second to the last element to be what? To be the second element. We want the third element here to be the what? The third to the last element. And this one here remains the way it is, right? Because even if you swap it, it's still going to be in the middle, right? So this is just what we are going to do. It's just like swapping. Okay, we are swapping. 0 to be the last, 1 to be the second to last. So this is how we are going to do this. So what we are going to do here, as you can see, is just that we are going to loop over the element of that array, right? But in this case, we are only going to loop from where? From 0 to 2 here, right? This is where our looping should stop. Hope you understand why. The reason why our looping should stop here is because when it loops from 0, 1, 2, it's swapping the values here. So no need for it to go ahead. Okay, it's just going to loop the first 3 characters here, the first 3 elements. If it loops the first 3 elements, then it should swap them with the what? With the last 3 elements. So that's all. So no need for us to loop up to the end of the string. Okay, no need for that. I just hope you understand this thing. We are not going to loop to the end of the element of the array. Instead, we are going to loop from the first 3 elements. That is in this case. Okay, that's in this case. We are looping from the what? First 3 elements, because we are swapping the first 3 elements with what? With the last 3 elements. Let me give you another example here. If I have an array like this, let me clean this. If I have an array like this, let me just say S, right? This is an array. If I have an array of I have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G here in this case. So I want to swap this now. I want G to be replaced with A. I think we've done a task about swapping, in which I was even telling you that take note of how we did the swapping, because we are going to use it in a task. I think this is the task. So I want the first element to be replaced with the last element. The second to the last element should be replaced with the second element. That's how we swap them, right? That's how we get to print the last element, followed by the second to the last, followed by the third to the last, and then the first element will be the last element of the array. Hope you understand this. So to do that, I have to swap A with what? With G. So I will now have G here, right, in place of A. So I will swap A here also B here, sorry, with F, so I will have F here. I will swap C with what? With E, so I will have E here. Then this D here remains where it is because there is nothing to swap with D. So this is what? This is D, right? I have D here. Then what again? Then this. Then I will now have what? A, sorry, I will now have C, right? C, B, and then A. That does it. As you can see, we've gotten this printed in reverse. G, F, E, D, C, B, A. So that's just what this is all about. We are going to swap these characters. Hope you understand this. So let's open the file here. Where's the terminal? Okay, so we are going to swap just like the way it happened here. As you can see, from 0 1 2 3 up to 1 3 3 7, then it got swapped, right? So now it's time for me to do this swapping. So since I'm going to use loop, right, I will simply say int I. You all know why I use I for my looping, right? I use I for looping. So before I do that, let me show you another thing here. Since we are given a condition here, I think it says what? Let me see. It says n is the number of element of the array. So in this case here, let me just do another this thing here. A is equals to 0 1, sorry, 1 here, 2 3 4 5. So in this case here, it says what? We are going to print, it says n is the number of element of the array, right? So to do that looping, right, to loop about this, we have to know the number of element in the array, which we are given as what? As n. N is the number of element. Why do we need the number of element in the array? Because it is when we divide the number of element by 2 that we'll be able to know where our loop should stop. I said if we are to loop this, it will be like this, right? Loop this like this, then loop this like this, right? That's what I said. So it's, as you can see here, we are looping from where? From 0 to 2. So we are only looping 3 times. 1 2 3. What is 3? 3 is the number of element, which is 6 here, over 2. That's how it becomes what? It becomes 3. So I'm looping from where? From 0 to 2. 0 1 2. That's 3 elements. Hope you understand. So I'm looping from here to here only. That's why I need to know the number of element. If the number of element is 10, I'm going to loop from where? From where? From 0 to what? To 10 to less than 10 all over 2. 0, 10 over 2 is 5. So I'm going to loop 0 less than 5. Okay, so if you count from 0 to 5, you have what? 0 to 4, you have 5 elements. Hope you understand why I'm not saying less than or equals to 5. I'm interested in printing 5 elements, swapping 5 elements. So that's the purpose of knowing the length of the string. Okay, so here we've been given that n is the number of elements inside the string. Sorry, I was saying length of the string, number of elements in the string. So now let me begin my iteration. I will say for I want to begin my iteration from where? Index 0, right? So 0. So what should be the condition here? My iteration should stop when I is less than what? Is less than n all over 2. I've already explained this here, right? I've already explained this here. N is what? In this case, n is 6, right? So 6 divided by 2 will give you 3. So I want my iteration I to stop when it is less than n all over 2, which is what? I less than 3 in this case, right? So 0 to 3 is how many character? How many elements? Is 4 elements. So that's why I said less. So instead 3 will not be included here. So I have 0 1 2. That's how I get 3 elements to be iterated over. Okay, so that's why I said length, the number of elements divided by 2. That's where my iteration should stop. So I will then increment this now. So now here comes the trick for swapping. I've already explained to you how to do swapping in one of the sessions we had. So to do this swapping here, this element here, this first element, let me create another one. This element here, if I have a here, I want to swap 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So to do this swapping, I will have to create a copy of this, right? And then replace the value of this with the last element here. So this value here will be overwritten with what? With this now. But I already have a copy of the first element, don't forget, somewhere. So I can easily swap this value as well with that copy of this first element here. I don't know if you understand this. I have to create a copy of this first element, not just the first element, any first element I'm iterating over. I will have to create a copy of it first. After creating a copy of it, then I will say, okay, the value here should now be equals to what? The value here. So you can see this holds the value of the last digit now. But what of the value that was overwritten here? I already had a copy of it, right? So I will simply replace it with the last digit here. So that's what we are going to do here. Okay, if you don't understand, go back to the task we did on this swapping and understand the concept. So here I will create another variable to hold what? To hold the value, to hold the first element or any element I'm iterating over. So I will simply say j, right? This will hold the element is equals to what? My element, my array name is a, right? So I will say a, then what? I. So what is this going to do? For each iteration, if I'm for the first iteration here where I is equals to 0, j is going to store the iteration, the first element of a, which is in this case, let me show you, the first element, which is 0 here in this case, right? After storing this, now you can see j has a copy of what? Of this first element, 0, right? So let's move. So now what next again? So the next thing now is to what? Is to target this. Now I've already stored a copy of this element. Now the first iteration, I have a copy of it inside what? J. So now j stores what? Stores 1, right? So now I have to target this last element here. Okay, don't forget this is stored as what? As an array. So this has index 0, this has index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, index 5, and then this have what? Index 6, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, these are the different index, right? So what is the length of this string here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7, right? We have 7. So what is the index of the last element here? Is 6, right? The length is 7 and the index is 6. So if I'm to target this last element here, I will simply say n minus what? Minus 1. This will give me the last element, the index of the last element. If I do something like this now, if I do something like this, I'm targeting the last element of this. Hope you understand this, right? I'm targeting what? The last element, and the number of element here is what? Is 7, right? So what is the index of the last element? The index of the last element is 6, right? So how do I get this 6? I will just simply say, okay, the length of the string minus 1. The length of the string is 7. 7 minus 1 is 6. So that's how I get to target the last element here. Had it mean I have another element here now? Let me just say 8. Had it mean I have 8 here? What will be the what? This 8 will now hold the index 7, right? So how do I target this? I will simply say 8, which is the length of the string, right? 8 minus 1, which will give me 7, which is the index that holds the last element. So 8 here minus 1 is 7, right? So I can see 7 is the last element. So that's what I'm going to use here also to target the last element here. So I'll simply say a what? A n minus 1. So now I've targeted the last element. So I will say is now equals to what? I will now assign the value of the last element to what? A I here. Okay, so it means that, don't forget, I've already stored the value of a iteration, a index 0. That's the first iteration. I already have the value inside this. So now all I'm saying here is that, okay, now index 0 should hold the value of the last element. Okay, that's for the first iteration. It should hold the value of the last element. Okay, so this will work now only for the first iteration. So what if I is what? I is 1 here. If it increments to 1, so you can see here j will now hold the value of what? A index 1, right? It's normal. That's what we want to do. So but what here? A n minus 1 is still what? The last element here. It will not move. We are still targeting the same element we targeted in the previous iteration, right? If the length is 8, 8 minus 1 is 7. For the first iteration, okay, we stored that here. Then we'll move to another iteration. It's still staying what? 8 minus 7 is still staying in that same index. It's not moving anywhere. This particular portion here, this place. If the length is 5, 5 minus 1 is 4. Then it will move to the next iteration. It still comes here and said what? 5 minus 1 is still 4. This is not changing, because what? It is only the value of I that is changing, and we don't have I here. So this would be what? Will be constant. This will not change. So we have to make this change as well. As the iteration is moving, it is also changing. So instead of me to say just n minus 1, I will say n minus 1 minus I here. So what am I doing here? I'm saying that, okay, let's consider the first iteration here. I is 0. So in the first iteration where I is 0, I want to store the value in this place j. Let me show you something here. Let me clean this. So now I have something like this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now I already declared a variable j that holds the first element, right? That holds this. This is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And we know the number of arrays here is what? Is 7. Okay, so I already have an element that stores what? A index 0. I'm considering the first case now. So what the first iteration, what is a index 0? A index 0 is 1. So j will now hold the value of 1, right? So value of 1 now is now stored in what? In j. That's the first element here. So what I'm going to do now next is just to say, okay, since I already have a copy of this and I want to swap this with this, so now I can simply say a index 0 should now be equals to what? What is the last element here? The last element is simply n minus 1. That's how I get the index of the last element. The number of elements here is 7, minus 1 is 6. So this is saying, okay, it should be a n minus 1. A index 6. The length is 7. 7 minus 1 is 6. So this will store now a index 6 here. So a0 now holds the value. A0 now holds the value of what? The last element here. Okay. So now the next thing for me is to what? Get this last element holds the value of the first element. Don't forget, I've saved my value of the first element in j. So I can simply say a n minus 1, which is the last element, is now equals to j. Simple. So I said the first element a0 should be stored in what? It should be stored in this variable j. Okay, so now I have a copy of 0 inside j. Sorry, I have a copy of 1 inside j, right? So I then say, okay, now the a0 here, this first element here should be replaced with the last element here, 7. So it has now been replaced. So now I will say, okay, the last element now should be replaced with the value of the first element which I saved inside this variable j. So that's why I do something like this. So this is how you can swap this. But this will only work like this in the first iteration. What if I is 1 here? So now I will say j will now hold the value of a. If I is 1, it will be 1, right? Index 1, which is equals to what is index 1, which is equals to 2 here in this case. So now I will simply say a index 1, right, to be equals to what? Now I'm not targeting the last element, I'm targeting the what? The second to the last. If I say a n minus 1 here, what will happen? It is still going to target the last element here. Why I'm not interested in targeting the last element here now? I'm interested in targeting the second to the last element. Okay, so what will happen here now? So in this case, we have to make a little amendment to our code here. So I will now say a, it should now be what? A n minus 1 minus I. Okay, so this will get me to what? To the second to the last element here. That means if I is 1, right, it will be what? A n minus 1 is what? N minus 1 we know is what? 6, right? In this case, n minus 1 is 6. So minus I is what? I is 1, which is what? Which is 5. So that's how it will get us to the 5th index here now. Okay, so now I will simply say a. I already have a copy of the 5th index in the what? In the first index. So I will now say a n minus 1 minus I. Now the 5th index is equals to what? Is equals to j. So now I've swapped this with this. So if we move to the next iteration here, which is a2, right? A2 here we know is equals to what? J. This will store A2. J is equals to what? A index 2 is what? Is 3 in this case. So I will now say A2 should now hold which value? A2 should now hold the value of this 4th element here, right? So I will now say A is the same A n minus 1 minus I. How do I get this? N minus 1, we all know the length is 7. N minus 1 is 6. our I here in this case is what? Is 2. So 6 minus 2 is 4. So it will target the 4th element. Okay, so now I've stored this string here, sorry, this element here in this element here. So now this holds the copy of this, right? So now the next thing is to put the copy of this here as well to swap. So I'll now say, okay, now this is index what? 7 minus 1 is 6, 6 minus 2 is 4. This is what? Index 4. So now I'll now say my index 4, right, should now be equals to what? J, right? Since I'm swapping, I already have what? A copy of J index 2, which is this 3 here inside J. So now I've swapped them. So this is just what the swapping is all about. I hope you understand this concept here. So now let's write the code. So here I will now say what? I will now say A n minus 1 minus I, right? I've already explained this. Is equals to what? Is equals to J. So, but here I think there has to be spacing before Betty give us an error before we get. Alright, so here as well. Okay, so I hope you understand this, and this is just swapping. Okay, we swapped the last element with the first element, the first element with the last element. This thing here, this line of code here, I've already explained it here for you. Okay, I've explained everything here for you. So this is how it's going to work. Okay, so now the next thing is for us to now do our Betty documentation. That's all I think for this. Let's check and see if there is any error, then we can come back and fix it. Then let's close this. So let's save and exit now. Let's run Betty on the file. Okay, it says space preferred around slash. Okay, let's see line 14. Line 14. Okay, this place here, the space required. All right, so let's run Betty again and see. Alright, so now Betty is fine. Let's copy the test file here for checking if the code will work. Alright, so what's the file name? For main.c, right? vi for main.c. So let's paste this here. Good, let's save and exit. So now let's compile the program and see if it will work. So copy this, paste here. Alright, so let's run the compiled file. Yes, so you can see we got this in reverse, right? 0, 1, 2 up to 1337, and then 1337 back to 0. So this is it. You can see this is how the code shows. This is just swapping. That's why initially when I was explaining the basic, the simple swapping project we had, I was telling you to learn to understand this swapping concept because we are going to use it ahead. Okay, so this is just swapping. We swapped the values. Okay, so don't forget to add, commit, and push to your GitHub repository, and then run the checks. I'm still working on my Vagrant. Okay, so this case here, this question here says write a function that changes all lowercase letter of a string to uppercase. The function should change a lowercase to uppercase. Okay, that's just what the function does. If it detects a lowercase, it should change it to uppercase. So how do we do this? This is also something tricky, okay, but it's simple, believe me. So let's copy the file name. Or before that, let me copy this test file and create the file first. So copy this. I will simply say vi5 main.c. Okay. So let's save this. So now we've saved this file. So copy this string to upper.c. All right. So vi string to upper.c. Okay, so let me include my header file main.h. Start thinking of how we will be able to solve this problem. You can start thinking of how to do this. It's a very, very simple problem. Very simple. It's just that you just have to think a bit before you get the concept. Okay, you have to think. So what we are going to do here is this. It says what? Write a function that changes lowercase letters to a string, of a string to uppercase. So you have to what? You have to refer to your ASCII table for this. Okay, you have to refer to your ASCII table. If not, how will you be able to change in an uppercase to lowercase? Just like this here. If you are given Alex like this, so the program should return what? Alex. So how will you be able to change these characters here to uppercase if you don't know their ASCII value? How do you think you can do that? So we have to compare these values with their ASCII values. Sorry, we have to compare these values with their ASCII values. Okay, we have to do that. So how do we do this? Let's go to our ASCII table here. I already have the table. Let me navigate here. So the first thing is to check the ASCII code for the first alphabet up to what? To the last alphabet. So you can see from A here, as you can see from A to Z here, takes in the value 97 to 122, right? So just take note of that. You can just say 97 to 122 is what is lower, right? Let me write this here. I will simply say 97 to 122. I will now say lower, right? So now we've taken note of the lower case. So what of the uppercase here? So the uppercase also we can check. As you can see, the uppercase here begins with 65 to what? To 90. So I will now say 65 to 90, right? 65 to 90, I will now say upper. So now we've taken note of this. But one thing you need to check is this. Let me still open the ASCII table. How do you change from small a to capital A? That's what we want. How do you change from small a to capital A? So take note of the ASCII version, ASCII code of the first element, and also take note of the small of the lowercase character, and also the ASCII code of the uppercase character. We are trying to change both A and A. We are changing small letter A to capital letter A. So in this case here, let me just open this here. I'm trying to change from A to what? To A. So what is the ASCII code of A? The ASCII code of A is what? Is 97, the small a, right? As you can see here, the ASCII code is 97, and the capital A is what? Is 65. So the capital A is what? Is 65. So how do I get to change from this to this? Okay, how do I get to change from lowercase to uppercase? So I can do some math here. Okay, I can do some math. I tried to figure out the relationship. I've already figured the relationship. You can think on how you can get the relationship. So if I subtract 32 here from 97, what will I have? Subtract 32 from 97. What will you have? If you subtract 32 from 97, you will get this exact value here. Right? You will get this exact value. 97 minus 32 is 65. Okay, hope you got the concept. So now anytime I want to change from A to this capital A, I can just simply subtract 32 32 from the ASCII of the small character here. Let me show you another example here. Let's say I have something like this. Let's say I have something like this. I want to change D, right, to what? To D. What is the ASCII code of D? Let's check the small d and capital D. So the small d is 100 and the capital D is what? Is 68. 168. Okay, so this is now what? 100 and then what? And then 68. So how do I get to convert this into this? That is, how do I get to change 100 to 68? If I subtract 32 from 100, I will get 68. Okay, so this is the relationship here. So if I subtract 32 from 100, I will definitely get 68. So this means that I've now changed from D to D here. Okay, that is if you are changing from lowercase to uppercase. What if I'm changing from uppercase to lowercase? I think there is one task similar to this in this project here. So what if I'm changing from capital K? Let's say I'm changing from capital K to what? To small k here. So what's the ASCII code of this capital and small k? The capital K takes in 75. The small k takes in 107. So 75 and then what? 107. Always when you check, you'll be able to see that, okay, the ASCII code of the lowercase alphabet is always greater than the ASCII code of the what? Of the upper alphabet. So in this case, how can I get this k here to become a lowercase? So in the previous, when we are trying to convert lowercase to uppercase, we subtract 32, right? So in this case, what will I do to this 75 to make it become 107? So I will simply add 32 to 75. If I add 32 to 75, I will get 107. So now I've changed this here to what? To 107. So I've successfully changed what? I've successfully changed this uppercase now to lowercase. That's just it. Hope you are understanding the concept. When you are changing from uppercase to lowercase, right, you add 32. Just take note of this. Let me write it for you here. Upper, right, upper to lower, right? If you are converting from upper to lower, you simply what? You simply minus 32. Sorry, plus 32. When you are converting from upper to lower. When you are converting from lower to upper, right, you simply what? Minus 32. So this is how this is going to work. So this is the concept we are going to use to solve this problem here. So in this case, I will just say what? I'm going to what? Iterate. Let me open the project. So I will say int I for my iteration. You all know why. Then I will say for. I want to iterate over the what? The string, right? I will have to iterate over the strings. So I will say for. What's the string name here? In this case, sorry, we are not given the name of the string, so we have to put anything here. I can just say str. Let me just say str. Okay, so I will now say I is equals to 0 and begin my iteration from index 0, right? So str I is not equals to sorry, it's not equals to /0. That's the null byte, right? Then what? I plus plus. All right, so this is the loop. Then what again? So now this will run the loop. So what I'm going to do next here is this. I've already taken note of this. Let me open this ASCII code again. As you can see, like I explained, I said the alphabet A to Z, the smaller alphabet, takes in 97 to 122, right? Let me write it again. 97 to 122. Let me just say lower, right? So the uppercase takes in what? It takes in 65 to 90, which is what? Which is upper, right? So take note of this range here. We are going to use this range. So now I will just say what? If, I'll give an if statement here. I will say if stri, right? If stri, that is if the ASCII or the value that is inside str index, so whatever the index is, if the value inside that is greater than or equals to A. Since I'm changing from lowercase to uppercase, don't forget the question here. It says what? Lowercase letters to a string in uppercase. So that's why I'm considering lower cases here. If it is greater than or equals to A, right? And what? And stri here is what? Is less than or equals to Z. Initially, I wanted to use the ASCII codes. That's why I said you should take note of this. But I realized that it will even work if we don't use the ASCII code that is in this if statement here. So all I'm saying is that if the first iteration for I is equals to 0, if stri, that is index 0, is greater than or equals to A, and stri, that same index, is less than or equals to Z, so this is what I want to happen. Because I'm only checking for lower cases. That's why I put lower case here. That's why my condition is like this. So I will now say str, if it is equals to what? If it is equals to A, if it is greater than or equals to A or less than or equals to Z. So I will now say stri should now be equals to what? I will just say str. We already said what? If we are converting from lowercase to uppercase, we minus 32, right? So I will now say stri here, then what? Then minus 32. That's all. Hope you understand this thing here. I'm iterating over a set of string, right? So that's why I need to use the loop. You all know why I use the loop. So inside this string, inside this set of string, don't forget I'm only checking for lower cases. So that's why I give this condition here. So I said if for each iteration the index is greater than or equals to A, this means that it is what? An alphabet, right? And I used small letter A here since I'm considering lower cases. And also that index is less than or equals to Z, which means it falls between what? A to Z, right? I'm just taking the range A to Z. Okay, so if that iteration met this condition here, that's this iteration I, if I met this condition here, then I want to subtract 32 from that particular index. Okay, so you can see our function is of type char, right? So it has to, its return value is char, so we have to return something. So we are now going to return str. Str is our array in this case, right? Our pointer. So you have to return a pointer to str. Hope this is clear. Let's do our Betty here and see. So now let's run Betty on this file and see. So I'll just say Betty 5. Yes, so Betty is fine. So you can see we are taking more time to solve this particular problem here. So the problems are getting advanced every day. So let's compile now and see. Alright, so it has been compiled. Let's run the compiled file. Alright, yes, so you can see we got what we want here. Okay, we got what we want. Let's clear our screen now and let's move to the next task. So this task here says write a function that encodes a string into 1337. This is called lit code. Okay, this is called lit code, and let me show you why. In fact, what is even this lit code? What is lit encoding? Sorry, I've been saying lit code. Lit encoding. What is lit encoding? Lit encoding is just a technique used to replace letters with numbers or special characters that resembles them. Okay, in order to kind of encode a message. So let me show you some common lit encoding substitution. In lit, you are substituting what? Characters with what? With numbers. Okay, let me show you what I'm trying to say here. In lit, right, in lit, there are some common substitutions. Okay, let's say the character a, or a, that is small a or capital A, takes in the value 4. E or small e takes in the value 3, right? I or I is what? Is 1. O or small o is what? Is 0, right? This is 0. Then we have s or small s is equals to what? Is equals to 5. And then t or t, these are just common these are substitutions of lit takes in the value 7. So from here you can see we are told what? Write a function that encodes into 1337, and I said this is lit, and here they are saying 1337. What is this 1337? Let me show you how we derive this 1337 here. 1 is what here? 1 is L, right? As you can see, when we encode with 1, we are representing L. So E is what? 3 is what? 3 is E. So this is what? E here. Then we have what? 1337. They are told to convert it to 133. Yeah, I'm using 1337 encoded. So, and then the next 3 is what? Is E again. Then 7 is what? 7 is T. So this is how we get the lit code. So we use lit to what? To kind of replace letters with numbers or special characters. Okay, that's just what lit does. So here, like I said, A takes in the value 4. As you can see, they've even given us this. So we've been given all these things. So it says you can only use if in your code. Okay, we can only use one if, right? We can only use one if in our code. Okay, and then you can only use 2 loops in your code. You are not allowed to use switch. You are not allowed to use any ternary operator. All right, we are not going to use any ternary operator in this case. So let's open the file first, or let me create the test file. Right, let me copy this. So vi, right, 7 main.c. Okay, so let's paste this here. Good. All right, so let's open the file 7lit.c, right? 7lit.c vi. Okay, so let me include my header file #include. I don't even think I've included this in my header file. Let me check after writing this. I'll have to check. Right, then what's the function prototype, which is this, right? This is it. Copy, paste here. Okay, so let's save and exit this. I want to just check my header file now. Print, what's the function lit? As you can see, it's like I don't have lit here. Right, I don't have lit, so I'll have to put the prototype. Wow, I didn't mean I did not check. I'll just be getting errors. Okay, so paste here. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's save and exit now. So let me open my file again and work on the file. Okay, so just like I said that lit is used to convert what is used to replace letters with numbers here. So what we are going to do here is that we are given a set of string, right? A set of string will be passed to our function. As you can see here, this is an array of string, right? So all what we are to do is to replace E. Anywhere we see capital E and small e, we should replace it with the corresponding digit here, right? Anywhere we see what we see T, we should replace it with the corresponding digit. As you can see, this is the result, right? This is the result here. So that's just what we are going to do. So the first thing we are going to do, we have to iterate over the set of string, right? So I will say int I for my iteration. But before that, I will have to create a pointer that will store these values here. Sorry, this character, the character I want to search. This small a and capital A, E, O, T, L. I will have to create a pointer that will store them for me. They will be stored as an array, right? So I will simply create a pointer to a character. Let me call this A in this case. So what I want to store here is what? I want to store these arrays here. I want to store small a, right? Capital A. I'm using arrays in this case to check for this, okay? Small a, capital A, small e, capital E, right? Small o, capital O, then small t, capital T, right? L, capital L. So this is all what I want to check, right? So, and I want to replace them with what? I want to replace them with this. Let me create another character here, asterisk B. So in this case, I will have to create another set of string, which is what? A will hold what? Small a will hold 4, capital A will hold 4, small e will hold 3, capital E will what? Will be replaced with 3. Sorry, I was saying will hold, will replace 3. Then what again? Small o will be replaced with what? With 0, right? So capital O will be replaced with 0. So small t will be replaced with what? With 7. Capital T will be replaced with 7. Small l will be replaced with 1, and capital L will be replaced with 1. So this is all what I need now for my iteration. So what this is saying here, I'm just trying to store the characters, and then I'm storing what their corresponding numbers, the numbers that is going to replace each of them. That's what I did here. So now let's begin my iteration. So I'll now say for I equals to 0, right? So let me name this, the pointer here. Let me just say P. Okay, let me name it P here. So if, or let me give it str for this thing, for easier understanding. So for str, for this, sorry, str I is not equals to what? 0, right? Then what? I plus plus, right? So this will what? Iterate over the set of strings. So now for each iteration of the string here, I also want to iterate over this. I want to check this as well. So I'll have to create another loop to iterate over this character for me here, in which I want to what? To replace with these numbers. So I can simply say for, I have to create what? Another variable here, int, let me call it J. Okay, so I want to use this to iterate over the strings here, this string here, this array of string, which is A. I want to iterate over them. So all I'm going to do is to loop, right? I will say J. Now I'm using J to loop over that one, right? I will simply say J is equals to what? Is equals to 0, and begin my iteration from 0, right? So I will say what? I will say A is the variable, right, that holds the set of string, right? So I will say A, right, J. We all know how to loop in a set of string, right? A, J is less than or equals to what? Sorry, or equals to the null byte. So this is the condition to stop the looping, right? Then I will say J plus plus. All right, so now this will give me the chance to loop over this character here, this set of strings here. Okay, so now I will close this, and then what again? So I will have to check, right? I will have to check the character here for this iteration here. If what is encountered in any of this iteration here is equals to what is encountered in any of this iteration here, then I want to replace it with this, right? What I mean here is that, let's say the first iteration here is 0, right? So for index 0 here, right, it will first loop for what? For 0. So this is what? Index 0. It will then come to this loop here again and begin another iteration. J is what? J is 0 as well here. So it will check for 0 as well. So you can see I and J are currently what? Are currently 0 in both cases. So it will now check if what is in stri, right, is the same thing as what is in strj. That is this, right? Sorry, in what is in aj here, a is this. Don't forget, this is the set of string that holds a. So if what is in stri is the same thing as what is in aj, this means that aj contains one of this, right? So we are to replace that particular index with the corresponding number in this b, this variable b, this array b. Hope you understand what I'm trying to do. So I'm just trying to check for this and compare them. Whatever is in str, if it is the same with what is in a, that is this here, if it is the same with what is in a, then replace that particular index with what is in b. So instead, I will give an if condition here. I will say if I'm comparing stri, right? Stri is equals to what? Is equals to aj. Okay, so if stri is equals to aj, then what should happen? Then I'm changing stri now to what? Stri now will now be equals to bj. I'm replacing the value, or I'm replacing whatever it is in that a to what is in b. So if a is encountered, small a is encountered, it will replace it with what? With small b. If capital E is encountered, it will replace it. Sorry, if small a is encountered, it will replace it with 4. If capital E is encountered, it will replace it with 3. So this is how this is going to work. Okay, this is the loop. So the first loop here will iterate what? Over this first loop here. It will iterate over the set of string that will be passed in our function, this str. So when it iterates over it, it will then move into the next, it will move into the loop and then try to check this loop as well. This loop, the essence of this loop here is to iterate over these strings here. Okay, these characters that we want to replace with their corresponding numbers. Okay, so it's to iterate over them. So I created another loop to iterate over this set of string here. So what I did here, I said if str, any index of str is the same as what? Any index of a, right? If it is the same as any index of a, then I want stri, right, to be replaced with what? bj, that is any index of this, of b. So if index 5 in a is the same thing as any of the index of str, then bj will be what? Will be b index 5. So we'll check b index 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that particular str index 5 will be replaced with what? With b index 5, which is 0 in this case. Hope you guys understand the concept. You can read about this lit, okay? Just read about lit to be able to understand the concept on how this is working. So now, what's next? So let's return our function. You can see it's supposed to return a pointer to a character. So this should be return str, right? So this should be str. Okay, so I think this should work now. So the next thing is to document Betty. So let's document Betty. Let's save this and exit. Right, we are done. All right, so what's next? We've already created the test file, right? So let's compile the program and see how it will work. So let's copy this and let's paste this here. Sorry, I have to copy, then paste. Oops, so I missed a semicolon somewhere. So let me open the file. Okay, I've seen it. There's supposed to be a semicolon here. Yes, so save and exit. So let's compile again. All right, so now it's fine. Let's run the compiled file. Okay, so let's see. Yes, so you can see we got 3 by p, 3 c, 7, all these things. You can see it has been replaced. The entire text has been replaced according to the lit numbers. So this is what? This is the encoding of lit. This is how lit works. It replaces any of these characters. Sorry, where is it? Any of these characters it encounters in a string is going to respond to replace it with these numbers here. That's just what it does. Hope this is clear. So the next thing is for you to just add, commit and push. Then you can run your checks on it. So I think this video is taking long as well. So we'll have to continue in the part 3 of this video. Thank you very much. We'll meet in our next session.